In 2025, Coco Gauff made a reported $33 million, crowning her as the highest paid female athlete on the planet for the third year in a row. So let's talk about how she got there. This is the numbers game. Coco Gauff is one of the top tennis players in the game, having won 2 Grand Slams at just 22 years old. She's really, really good at tennis. Here's the caveat though. Coco Gauff didn't lead the tour in prize money last year. Sabalenka won more actual tennis money than she did. So did Swiatek. So did Rybakina. That's not a knock on Gauff, it's just how tennis money works. Some years you go deep in more events than others, but it does set up the principal question of this video. If she's not even the top prize money earner in her own sport, how is she the highest paid woman in all of sports? The answer? The other $25 million. The $25 million she earned by betting on herself, by staying authentic, by being the brand. Before talking about Coco's personal success, we need to understand the world she's operating in, because none of this is possible without it. Tennis started as a country club sport, created by the wealthy for the wealthy. Rolex doesn't sponsor tennis because it has the largest audience. It sponsors tennis because it has the right audience. In this case, targeted reach easily trumps mass reach. Wimbledon, for example, carries a certain prestige that I would argue is only somewhat rivaled by one sporting event, that being the Masters. Die-hard tennis fans are prepared to shell out incredible amounts of money to attend the matches year after year. They do this through what are called debentures. Economically, debentures are defined as debt instruments secured by the general credit of the issuer rather than by a claim on specific assets or collateral. To reframe this around Wimbledon, dedicated viewers have the ability to pay $150,000 to guarantee a primo seat for a period of 5 years. Wimbledon uses this money as raised capital to support renovations, management, and facilities. Where the secured by general credit comes in is that the buyer is essentially taking on debt, since the payment was up front, with the trust that in 5 years the All England Club will still exist and honor that purchase. One doesn't own any specific Wimbledon asset as collateral. It's based on the long-standing credibility of the tournament. To dive slightly further, this debenture is unlike a corporate debenture, which pays a cash yield. A debenture at Wimbledon essentially pays in status, the same prime view of the tournament, plus the ability to resell that debenture on a secondary market if you don't want it anymore, many times for over the original price, which creates its own secondary economy through the Wimbledon tournament. So yes, tennis pays big dividends due to its overall prestige, popularity, and appeal to wealthier audiences willing to shell out more money for tickets. But as is the case in many historical instances, women's sports constantly face vast wage discrepancies in contrast to their male counterparts. Tennis has found a way to mitigate that difference, sharing real estate between men and women since its founding. Becoming a professional sport in the 1960s, its first female star came to the world stage soon after, in the 1970s. Billie Jean King is a pioneer of women's tennis and of women's sports all over the world. She demanded that both genders play the same tournaments on the same stages in front of the same crowds. That's not the case almost anywhere else in women's sports, and it's the reason the ceiling for women in tennis has been so much higher for so much longer. While there are certainly still discrepancies between the men's and women's game on tour, which Coco herself addresses, these differences are smaller in scale and have contributed to female tennis players being atop the highest paid women in sports. I know what you're thinking. I'm gonna put my future daughter in tennis. I mean, I am too. But it's not quite that simple. Underneath the top tier is brutal. Tennis has no league, no base salary, no floor. You fund your own coach, your own travel. A first-round loss at a slam pays 5 figures, and the title pays 7. But to get to slams, you must win lower-level tournaments, all paid for out of pocket. There are roughly 2,920 ranked professional players between the ATP and WTA tours combined. Out of that group, only around 400 actually make a living from tennis, roughly the top 200 on each tour. So it's not almost nobody makes it. It's worse than that in a way. It's almost nobody who's already a professional even makes it. You can be good enough to be ranked, good enough to be playing actual tour events against actual pros, and still be operating at a loss. And even inside that surviving 400, the math stays brutal. The average player doesn't break even on what they've spent getting there until they're ranked around 150th in the world. Tennis can yield grand cash prizes, but can also quietly bleed you dry while you're trying to get there. So that's the arena Coco is playing in. One where the efforts of an early legend led to great women making real money. But what's unique about Coco is not just her understanding of the game of tennis, but her understanding of the value that off-court deals can bring. Born March of 2004, Coco Gauff was destined to be an athlete. Her parents involved her in gymnastics, track, basketball, but landed on tennis the moment she picked up a racket. Her dad knew she was special, so he moved his family to his hometown, Delray Beach, Florida, also known as the home of some of the best tennis training in the world. By age 7, and with a new nickname, Coco spent 2 hours a day training with a pro. By 8, Coco had won Little Mo, an international juniors tournament against opponents from all over the globe. She didn't just prove her skills in her own backyard, she could hold her own with the best young phenoms around the world. At 13, Coco became a US Open juniors finalist, and just 1 year later in 2014, she became the youngest winner of the French Open juniors tournament. This continued success in junior tournaments led to a career-altering wildcard for the most prestigious sporting event in the world, Wimbledon 2019. At 15 years old, Coco Gauff survived qualifying and became the youngest competitor in the history of the Wimbledon tournament. But her success didn't stop there. Her next win would be one of, if not the most impactful win of her career. Coco Gauff, not even able to legally drive, beat her idol Venus Williams in straight sets at Wimbledon. This win solidified Coco in the media as the next big tennis star. She showed humility in her win, thanking Venus for all she's done for the game of tennis and for Black women everywhere. But the win yielded a pressure that Coco wasn't yet prepared for. In the US Open that same year, she faced world number 1 Naomi Osaka and felt that now she was expected to win, expected to upset, expected to rise to the occasion. But she didn't. And as she tearfully walked off the court, Osaka stopped her, reminded her where she was, how far she had already come, and that the fans were ultimately there to watch her. Osaka and Gauff shared an emotional on-court interview that would become a viral moment of camaraderie and grace in women's tennis. Following the loss, Coco continued to show consistent improvement, tournament after tournament, despite some early slam exits. And it all came to a head in 2022, when Gauff reached her first ever slam final at the French Open. Her opponent, deemed the Queen of Clay, Iga Swiatek, would be no small challenge. And in fact, she blew through Coco in straight sets. Coco mentioned that this loss was one of the most difficult of her career, but she grew from it. In her words, it taught her that you're further from the trophy in the final than you are in the first round. But 1 year later, on her home soil, the 2023 US Open, she found herself once again in a slam final against Aryna Sabalenka, at that time the ranked second best player in the world. Here's how that went. Coco had now achieved every tennis player's dream. She had won a slam, and she inscribed her name into history too, becoming the third American teenager to win the US Open, joining Tracy Austin and, of course, the great Serena Williams. But Coco was far from satisfied. One slam would never be enough for the girl who said she wanted to become the greatest tennis player ever. She became a slam champion in doubles, then she made it to semis in the 2024 Australian and French Opens, where she was defeated by the eventual champions. And that moment came again in 2025 at the French Open. Same opponent, different year, different surface.
That's out! Coco has conquered the clay!
But the same outcome. Coco Gauff defeated world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka to become a 2-time slam champion, and Coco continues to rise. Despite dropping 4 places in the rankings over the past year, Coco has made quite the run at Wimbledon, reaching her first semifinal in London. And though she suffered a loss in a grueling 3-set match versus Karolina Muchova, she continues to progress, and her best tennis often comes during hard court season. The world knew Coco's name, however, long before she won her first slam. At age 14, she signed a blockbuster deal with New Balance. Coco frequently mentions in interviews she dreamed of signing with Nike, just as her athlete idols did, but she credits New Balance for sticking by her before she had achieved international success. They allowed Coco to explore brands outside of the New Balance network. 2026 Wimbledon hosts Gauff sporting a New Balance and Miu Miu collaboration outfit. New Balance lets Coco be Coco. Coco doesn't have to be New Balance. Coco Gauff created her first signature shoe before she had won a major. That's almost unheard of. She calls this deal the best decision she's ever made. As expected, her success drew hundreds of brands to want early investment in her talent. Her upside was obvious, and brands wanted in. But Coco was selective and strategic. She took fewer partnerships, chose carefully, her scarcity making her more valuable, more desirable, not less. When it was tempting to jump ship at every opportunity, Coco said no, deliberately, and it made her richer. Coco is intentional. She chooses brands she believes in, ones that already impact her life. She turns away checks to protect her authenticity, believing that it would be unfair to her audience to do the opposite. She now is a partner of Rolex, Bose, Chase Bank, and even Barilla, yes, the pasta brand. She also recently struck a deal with Mercedes-Benz, valued at an estimated $90 million over the next 5 years. And unsurprisingly, her New Balance deal has been extended. An interesting lens on the financial prowess of star tennis players as opposed to other athletes is the timing of their success. Women's team sport athletes usually don't become stars, the face of their team, people brands want to build around, until their early to mid-20s, once they've established themselves as the best players on a real roster. Coco has been compounding brand value, deliberately, for almost a decade longer than her team sport equivalent even gets the chance to start. At 18, Coco decided to make her next big move. She wants to be her own brand, not the face of somebody else's. And so, in conjunction with the talent agency WME, Coco Gauff Enterprises was born. And as always, Coco is consistent and persistent. When asked about her business goals, she mentioned wanting to start something from the ground up. When asked about her legacy, she wants to be remembered as a good human who impacted people's lives, not just through tennis, but outside of it. And as of recent, Coco has made investments into the Unrivaled League, a new and upcoming women's basketball league. She partnered with Religion of Sports, a media company co-founded by Tom Brady, with her goal of pushing the stories of Black women outward. She continues to fight for equal pay on the basis of gender at the tour level. To frame her financial success in economic terms, Coco Gauff has built an exceptional portfolio over the last 8 years of her life. Her ability to diversify authentically has been shown throughout the entirety of her career. Here's the idea. An investor doesn't put all their money in one stock. They spread it across sectors, so one bad quarter in tech doesn't wipe them out. Coco's done the same thing with brand deals. Coco has influenced 9 different major sectors via her deals, making her mark across the multitude of industries. If one sponsor has a bad year, gets bad press, or quietly just doesn't renew, it barely dents her total income because nothing else in the portfolio is correlated with it. That's a very different risk profile than an athlete with one dominant sponsor covering 60% of their income. Coco Gauff is known for her exceptional tennis, yes, but her business building skills are pretty remarkable, and it's time she's known for that too. So what does this teach us, the viewers, the investors? Visibility yields value. Televising women's sports allows people to watch, allows audiences to grow, social media posts, virality. These moments have exponential impacts. Think about the WNBA's recent growth. The market is finally pricing in demand that was already there. Tennis has done this since its onset as a professional sport. So yes, Coco does find herself in the right place at the right time, but this should by no means discredit her success. Coco has shown poise on and off the court. She's persevered through loss, shown grace and triumph, and is intentional about every move she makes in her professional career, whether that's a 128 miles per hour serve or a new partnership. Coco has goals that extend past her career in athletics. She dreams of impact. She sees a future beyond her present success, and she bets on herself always. And at just 22 years old, I suspect we'll be seeing Coco's name atop the highest paid female athlete list for years and years to come. Thank you for watching this episode of The Numbers Game. If you liked what you saw, subscribe, as there will be more content coming, very, very soon.